Hello again there. We're on day 53. I'm Thomas Nyback. This is 365 Days Toward Racial Change. Looking at black issues in America, how black life is lived, how white life is lived, and all the races in between. We're informed by a man named Dr. Anderson. He puts out phenomenal work, speaks around the country, and enlightens us about the true position of blackness in America. I'm here taking this year to tease out, get people to think on two questions or two ideas. Follow me here. First question or idea has two trains of thought. One is, does the slavery mind, the mind oppressed, dominated, marginalized, does that black mind from slavery still prevail into the 21st century? And does the white mind of privilege, entitlement, domination prevail generation to generation into the 21st century? And the second part is, or question is, are blacks playing the economic game rightly in America? There's a way to play it. I think ignorance drives black economics more than anything. We don't educate each other. We don't know how the economic system works in America, let alone the world. That's actually today's subject, which is what we're going to be getting into. And Dr. Anderson's big. The foundation of much of his talks and books is economic empowerment, as you'll see just in a moment. First, though, first book I read of his was a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. I read Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Economic Power and Justice will be coming out of there today. And his national plan to empower Black America is Powernomics. He also has got a website, powernomics.com. He runs the Heritage Institute down in D.C., I believe. He's not hard to find. He's got a lot of videos out there, very informative stuff. I encourage you to go check him out. Also, we'll have some fictional time, what we call story time, here at 365 Days Toward Racial Change and through Uncle Tom's Cabin. Harry Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, mid-1800s, and we look at the life of a slave named Tom and his adventures and pursuits. And we look at his life to get some illustrations from those times and see if they prevail into today. Also, you can see behind me, hashtag us too. There's hashtag, you can find just about anything. Hashtag this here is a kind of a black movement, female oriented, but it's open to everybody there. Just if you want to get more focused conversations. Also, Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF, or another. It's like kind of a Facebook for black folks, and I hate to divide things like that. There's Black Business, the Black Business School. .com, and that has a million branches, but the director, if you will, is a man named Boyce Watkins. Tell him I sent you. They got a good program there. A little out of my price range, but he's got a lot of great stuff going on over there. Okay, so we're talking about economics. Specifically, we're working on the myths, working through myths. Coming specifically out of Black Labor, White Wealth, and these and myths and dreams section that Dr. Anderson has, and we're on myth number 3 about eradicating poverty. And let's begin. Poverty is not only reserved, it's not a black phenomenon, being poor and black. The disproportional phenomenon of it, of black poverty, is a problem, but it's not only blacks who are in poverty. It's too bad that like the world doesn't do a per capita, like a demand a per capita representation of poverty and crime and things like that. Blacks bear a disproportionate portion of dysfunction in America and around the globe. You see darker people always jammed up in something, and it's really sad that that's intentional. By the way, it's not by accident, and black people aren't inherently prone towards dysfunction. But we'll do that for another, say that for another day. So it's not just blacks. But everybody shares in it. What the problem is, one of the reasons why we're here is that per capita blacks share the most of it. We're a minority population, but the majority of us are just not making it. And for a lot of reasons. Eradicating poverty it's a myth because you're always going to have poverty, because the world is stratified and systematized in that way, where the engine, the economic machine, and everything runs on somebody scratching the earth and somebody being incredibly rewarded for whatever's produced or whatever service comes out of that raw material. That's just the way things are. I think they can be different, but I'm an idealist. So Dr. Anderson points out that our programs, allocating money, all these little temporary fixes, these band-aids on such a glaring problem, is such a waste of resources. We could really do better with educating one another, being more focused, and understand how our money works, where our money's going. Why blacks have more representation in business. Why, my thought, what I'm taught growing up, being in the same environment, like some of these subjects we could talk about occurs when I'm in the same environment, receiving the same indoctrinations, same material, but my perception of it is different from my white counterparts. So, I could be sitting in a classroom and my white folks next to me are like, boy, that's a good idea for business. That's a good idea. We can maximize that. We can turn that into a lucrative project. But I'm sitting there thinking, I'm just getting a skill to get a job, a better job. And us black folks are just so oriented towards the blue collar way of life, and that comes from slavery days. We're just good for scratching the earth and breaking our backs and working till ourselves till we're dead. Just giving ourselves up for white folks and the world is kind of the black creed, in general. here in America. I know we got our fireworks, we got our Steve Harveys and Winfrey's and Shaquille O'Neal's and Jordans and any sports superstar, you know, but it's not. Business is a common point of conversation. Black business is a point of common conversation in America. So we need education. So, and not we don't want to chase the carrot. We don't want to be constantly be educated on how to start a business. Listen, we don't lack for knowing. We lack for doing. You know, uh, there's other factors. There's marginalization of black business. The races are unfair towards blacks when it comes to business. They don't reciprocate our dollars, which I call for uh, boycotts. I'm working on thinking of getting some national movement together where no blacks go to any of these Chinese outlets stores and chat when blacks go to them every day, all over the country. If it begins with wall, it's probably a Chinese outlet. You know, these walls, mart, wall, green. It's a wall. You know, it's an obstruction. Who cares what the suffix is? The prefix is wall, and it's a wall because blacks are forced. There's no alternative. Well, we're not forced, right? You know, we just have no alternative. If we got into an argument, that'd be the difference. They'd say, go somewhere else. There is nowhere else to go. You know, the Asians make these garments and a lot of the stuff. The computer I'm using, probably not made in USA. I need to flip it over, but it'll probably say made in China, Hecko in China. So, you know, a lot of the Asian nations got dug in a long time ago before I could think or even do anything about it. And I'm sure there are cargo ships on the way. And you can get a good barometer of what's coming is by watching your commercials. You know, lift up the tag on your little toys for Johnny and Susie, and it's going to say "Made in China." This hat probably made in China. This hoodie, China. You know, my clothes, all made in China. You know, black or American business manufacturing is non-existent or extremely expensive, and we got it all flipped around like that. So anyway, like I don't think blacks like know that little part about the the economic injustice because the Asians they don't spend with black businesses. You know, when I get going in business, my figure, my face ain't going anywhere. Not out of shame, out of you know any kind of not out of any shame or nothing like that. It's like I don't want see prejudice is real in America, so I'm not going to risk losing some potential business. You know, so uh, you don't get my face until I get in a position where it doesn't matter. You know, I'm seriously thinking I might have a white face out there. You know, put people at ease until I can get locked in. You know, because we have plenty of legislation and whatnot to prevent any type of discrimination from happening to me. That it's written on the books, but what's written on the heart? What can I prove, right? You know. But then, what if we engage in overt affirmative action? Then you really turn a lot of heads and get a lot of negativity back from that. So getting back to eradicating poverty, if blacks would understand their dollars, how their dollars work, how much power their dollar has, not buying power, but if we understood how vital it is for that hungry machine called economics. It's just a hungry, insatiable machine that uh, it's afraid of going to sleep. It's afraid of having a Sabbath. I mention that because if you thank God, if you're in that understand your Bible and the Protestant kind of way, Catholics too, I guess. Uh, you know, any religion having Jesus there, or the Jews especially, there are Sabbaths. You know, I think every religion has a period of rest. You know, and God, though, in the Old Testament, He rested on the seventh day and all that. He did the work, and then there was a day of rest. You see, and America's caught. Well, the world is caught in its own devices because economics is 24/7. It's the artificial intelligence of the world that never ceases. And when that machine stops moving, they call it depression and all that. But it's not anything deadly and all that. It is it's an acceleration of a transfer of wealth and resources is what it is, and those who have are really jammed up about it because you know they've got to either put their resources into the system. The Federal Reserve, the bank that drives America, has to either print more money, which is a bad thing, you know. But poor folks, they ain't hit at all, you know. These depressions and recessions that they're talking about are not they're not as detrimental or bad as you think. I remember asking my grandmother. This is kind of funny because she was born in those years. I asked her what she remembered about it, and she actually went off on a big tangent. But then I realized, we see depression, and whenever I say that, if you Google it or look for videos on it, you're going to see long lines of white men in soup kitchens, you know. But you got to realize there was a segment of America already so poor, scratching their existence off the earth, that depression was news they got well after the fact. You know what I mean? So uh, it was kind of comical when I questioned my grandmother on that issue. All right, so we need an education. Now, this is one of my pet peeves too. We need the education in school. We need people equipped, armed with um, understanding how finances work. You know, see that shame on America for holding me hostage for 12 years. I got my high school diploma and all that, but it was just a plantation training camp. It was conditioning and indoctrination to prepare me to go work for somebody else. You know, they didn't teach me entrepreneurship, um, self-sufficiency. They just taught me how to be independent, to prepare me to be uh, given over to someone else more powerful. Again, um, so I'm impoverished, uh, sitting there getting the grades, making myself look attractive for some modern day master. Very shameful. on education. I want to get in a position where I can really come against that, force financial education. And I don't want to. I don't want children just to know how to start a bank account and save some money. Children need to know, when they spend that dollar, where's it going? Where's it not coming back to? Who's it helping or not helping? How does a child's race bear um, influence on that dollar? But we need that education in schools. They're so quick to from my early grades, first, second grade. I get the news. My family ain't even prepared me for the shocker that my race and my family were once slaves, and some of the some of my people might have been slaves to some of my white counterparts there in the same classroom. You know, that's our American education. So financial literacy is absent in schools, and we really need it. We need it real bad. Um, Not marches and poverty programs, because they don't work. Marches, legislation, right to vote, and all these things were not. Um, they didn't change anything. But see, you give the disenfranchised and marginalized people uh, some land and not bailouts, but you know, unfettered access to how economics happens. You know, don't don't give us a lump sum of money because we're probably going to run off and screw it up, just like anybody else probably would. You know, but if you teach us um, how to navigate, if we can navigate um, without any pushback or negative pressure, then you're really saying something about empowerment and getting marginalized and disenfranchised people into the being a part of the machine rather than serving the machine. Um, so the lack of education in school and in the home is a serious source of weakness in America. You know, because if things get bad enough, those poor folks, disenfranchised, marginalized, who are an overall majority, you know, are going to possibly take matters in their own hands and really um, start making up their own process and procedures to get their needs met here in America. I talked about these Chinese outlets, all the walls that black folks encounter. You know. And I'm very specifically uh, calling out the Asians. The Asians are told to avoid blacks when they immigrate here. The Asians don't reciprocate uh, black commerce. They won't buy from blacks and things like that. So that's real on the books. They're very explicit about it, but try to prove it, can't prove it. All right. So if blacks would understand that, that's something I didn't know how Dr. Anderson knows. He talks about that frequently through his writings and in his YouTube videos. Something we need to look at. So we need education in school and also in the homes. It's a very sad not to, the only thing I understood about money is that you go out and work for it and hopefully somebody will hire me and let me in and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, there was a time where that kind of worked, but nobody's into positions and jobs that they stay at one company for 30 plus years and retire there and live well afterwards. You know, this economic machine is gearing up and it's moving at such a feverish pace that the elderly are going back to work. Their funds are running out. Inflation they're not inflation proof. Um, Thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars isn't enough to sit somewhere, gain interest, and support that person that worked so hard. So they got to go back to work. That's inappropriate when there's so much there. You know, every year some new billionaire bubbles up to the top. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a trillionaire in my lifetime. Wow, that's a lot of money for one person to have, but we'll see it because the world's like that. The world's stupid like that. Um, as far as the education goes, we don't understand debt. We don't understand how debt drives debt. Um, is Debt creates um, an opportunity for the economic machine to move. You know, so they're gladly give you funds and resources to go to school that puts you in super debt, and that they're glad to do that because the recipient of all that money is um, they have first off they have the potential to earn that money back, um, but also that person's kind of there's a good feeling of having gone through that process, having at least believe in their minds their earning potential has increased. The system likes it, the economic machine likes it because debt creates this volition, this economic volition where things move and the machine is satisfied that there's activity there. So student loans and things like that, the debt towards education is extremely acceptable, and you find it's very easy to get. I've seen people go back to school just to get the money. They don't care about the grades or anything. They just get the money, but they don't understand who they're serving behind that. And education is beginning to, which it already is beginning to be seen as the farce that it is. You don't need to be educated to rise up in companies. You read the papers and as far as requirements and stuff like that, qualifications. That's another myth, right? Um, so my point is, like, if we understood that, if we understood how to resist debt, there's a place for it. You could think about some of your big ticket items, houses and cars, things like that to kind of get along. But if you're a fool like I was, you get into debt to buy stuff that does not produce any income. Income, money producing objects. If I went into debt for a machine for my business for this product or service, if it's computers, uh, to to make my business run faster, or if it's some machine that's going to stamp out widgets and make money, that's a good piece of debt. But if I'm paying my bills with that, with debt, or if I just want to go out and eat steaks and stuff with debt, that's not a good thing. That's very bad to do that. So in general, in closing, we're not going to eradicate poverty, but we can really, we can have an opportunity to slow that poverty engine down. Even the worst person in extreme debilitating financial circumstances can just enact some resistance against that economic machine, you know. And then, if blacks would come together economically like that and come together unified, sabotaging the financial movement in America, then we'd see uh, some change. I can't tell you how many emails I get every day of people just, well, they say they want to throw money at me and stuff like that. But they're agents of the economic machine because the machine wants to keep rolling. You know, until then, it, it has this big flashing lights that say poverty, uh, lack, privation, things like that, and we've got to put that in its proper perspective, in a new conception. Ooh, I'm running a little bit over. Uh, that's today, myth 3. We're going to come back tomorrow with the fourth myth. I'm going to leave that as a mystery, so make sure you tune back in. So that's day 53 out of the way. I'm Tom Nyback. Thanks for joining me for 365 days towards racial change.